Welcome back to the sixth and final episode of the Loki reviews here. We got Aidan once again. Thanks for being with me on these, going through them. Obviously, you had Eliath being defeated in the last episode, them going through, and they get to the palace, and you have Miss Minutes. When Miss Minutes shows up, I was kind of like spooked a bit, where I was kind of like expecting something, but for her to show up and be like, "Yep, I know everything," like. This is always like, it has so much more meaning now.
With the castle and stuff, I was expecting like a Dark Souls boss fight sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like something crazy where not only did they have to conquer Eliath, but now they have to like...
There's an even bigger, like who could tame Eliath, right?
Yeah, like there's some sort of enemy that causes some kind of big fight. But instead, Miss Minutes just popped up. And when I saw Miss Minutes, at first I was a bit unsettled. Because I was like, and the stuff that she's saying like wasn't.
Yeah. Well, for me, it kind of gave it a new, like every time she's on screen, it's like for her showing up there and like she's the only thing in the TVA that knows about all this and like what's actually happening. It's like now whenever I'm like thinking back on it, like when she's training Loki, like all of this stuff, like it kind of has a different meaning for me now, where it's like she is just like indoctrinating, especially now that you know. That guy, I'm blanking on his name, but that guy who's like in control of all this specifically wanted Loki and Sylvie to like lead, like he wanted a successor.
The one who remains.
The one who remains. Yeah.
There
we go. Yeah, but it's like he was trying to groom them to be his successor. So it's like now when I'm thinking back on it, like Miss Minutes being there throughout it kind of gives a different meaning to me now about what's going on.
Yeah, and throughout the episode. You also get to see Renslayer talking with Mobius some, and
I think like 40 minutes of this episode honestly takes place just in that castle, but like the pieces that aren't are like when Renslayer's talking to Mobius. So,
and those are only for like brief moments.
Yeah, it's like that's the one thing. Where did she go? Like I guess we know there's gonna be a season 2, but like Renslayer just kind of like takes the tempad and bounces. Like she doesn't try to do anything.
I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe she went somewhere else. I don't know, because that was just kind of a random like, where'd she go?
Yeah, like she's gone now.
Yeah.
But her like thinking about it now when she just kind of up and like leaves though is like it's got me thinking like what was she all about the whole season? Because now it's like not really like. Because it seems like she wants to know what's happening, like who's in charge, but I can't really ever tell. That's what I think this show did very beautifully, and like that's why I really liked Mobius and like Loki's relationship, because it's like Loki finally met his match. Like it's finally someone that can like call him out on this stuff.
Yeah.
And so when Renslayer's there, it just seems like the whole TVA, it's obviously built on a lie. It's like just made up stuff, and so that makes me even think like everyone in it. Can you trust anything that's going on here?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like with Renslayer now. I'm like. Does she know what's going on?
Yeah,
does she not?
Does she know?
Like, where is she trying to go? Like that. That's why I'm asking that question, because it kind of like, she's just I don't know. Her whole character is like weird now to me. But yeah, it's still a good character. I enjoy the character,
I mean, she was obviously faking it in episode 5 when she was talking to Sylvie about wanting to know what's going on. She was just stalling for time. So the guards could show up and could take out Sylvie. So that definitely got me thinking, like, we don't know how much she knows. Is she actually...
And she's the top of this, like, in-person type thing.
Yeah.
Like, you have those lizards, but other than that...
Yeah.
But yeah, she's... so, like, her character is very... There's still more to go in there. Obviously, this means that Owen Wilson is going to be in a second season. He's going to contain in the MCU.
Yep.
I hear they're probably going to get The Rock to show up. It's not in Loki, but just in general. Like, that would be cool. Matt Damon wants to be in part of it.
They have The Rock in there. They've got Korg.
Facts. That's actually true. Yeah. That's very true. But the that's a knee slapper, huh? Okay. But yeah, and then I guess Mobius and that whole thing, like, again, wasn't sure what he was trying to, like, accomplish. I guess just, like, change their minds. But, like, B-15 kind of just, like, when you see that, like, his plan doesn't make sense to me. Like, it works, but it doesn't make sense. Whereas, like, he just releases B-15, and then she just runs around screaming that this is all fake. I'm like, you guys already think this lady's crazy. Like, why are you listening to her? It's like some random guy in like his underwear running around the streets, like being like, it's a simulation.
Yeah, it's these like guys who go outside and they're just like, death will rain down
exactly.
on like banging a bell or like a drum or something.
Yeah.
And, like preaching chaos and whatever. We kind of get to see it for a brief moment.
Yeah.
Where, they're monitoring the timelines and they're watching it branch and they're like, what the heck do we do? And then at the end of the episode, when you see them again, you're like, oh, maybe we can figure out how it wraps up.
I was so hyped when they started talking. I'm like, oh, wow, there's going to be... Because I hadn't looked at, like, how much time had passed. So I'm like, oh, is this, like, 10 more minutes left? Like, what's happening? Like, but no, it was the end of it. But that... When they actually go through the palace, I guess, or the castle, and they're, like, with the one who remains, and it's Sylvie and Loki, and they're, like, I guess constantly trying to kill him, but he's like... I know what's happening throughout, like I know what's going on, like I know how that's gonna happen, which they never actually say, I guess, like how he knows that. Like they don't say it's a superpower. It doesn't seem like it is, and they don't, and it ends at a certain point because he says, "I don't know what's gonna happen past this point," and then like just chaos.
And that I do have a point on that.
Yeah.
Because that then means that it was kind of bizarre because. That means that there's the timeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they said that the time outside of the timeline or whatever is where Eliath is.
Yeah.
And then there's a point even beyond that, which is the palace. And yet, at the exact same time, this guy, the one who remains, still knows everything that's going to happen up until that point.
Yeah.
Which means it's all a timeline in and of itself. And yeah, it's variants and stuff. But... You're right. Like it gave me a lot more questions than it gave me answers.
Also, but it doesn't feel like a finale. Like it feels like there's more. Like it's a continuation that's gonna happen. Like and obviously there's a season 2. They talk about and if you've seen the new Spider-Man trailer, they talk about the multiverse. So it makes me also wonder: is there gonna be some crossover? Because they say that Loki so far in the TV shows is the most consequential for Phase 4, which I definitely see because it talks about like you have the timeline splits and there are all these different things. So, and in the comics, there's also a multiverse war arc like that happens in the MCU, and so I feel like that's kind of where they're going with Phase 4. And the one who remains, you know how? So he keeps talking about. I kind of wish we got more of his story. Like we got all his backstory basically, but I kind of wish we got more because he was an interesting character for me. I enjoyed seeing him.
You got very little of his backstory.
Yeah.
He just gave you...
Which I guess is on purpose, because they're probably going to bring a variant of him back.
Yeah. All that he talks about is the fact that he's the one who...
He doesn't say how he did that, did he?
Bring peace to the timelines.
Yeah.
I mean, he talks about how he was this, like... But he was the benevolent one. And he said that there were multiple versions of him across different timelines. One of them being, like, the Conqueror and stuff like that. And yet he was like, I was able to rein it in. I was able to isolate our timeline.
Yeah.
And successfully, like, stop all of this
control
inter-timeline war.
And he finally kind of, I believe everything he says. That's the thing, because like he's somewhat, and I could be being lied to, but I do believe everything he says, where it's like he's talking about how he was like a scientist basically, like back in like the day, or like and like he talks about multiversal wars. Like he actually, I guess he does bring it up. Like this is the first time, I guess, towards the end of this where they actually talk about that like arc. That's probably where they're going with what's going on. But when they talk about Conqueror, so this guy, so there's a major villain which I believe is going to show up in, I think it's one of these Phase 4 movies. I forget which one, but it's called Kang the Conqueror. And so this is a pretty big villain. He's a time villain. So, which explains the TVA. But his whole thing was, and in the comics, there's like a few different variations of him. Like one of them's even like, in like he's a, because you know when Renslayer says that she has another analyst that she's talking to. So in the comics, there's a variant of Kang the Conqueror that is an analyst for the TVA, falls in love with Renslayer, and then takes control of the TVA. So it's basically, you know, like it's, but there, so, and this guy is a pretty big villain. He's actually Reed Richards' grandson in the comics. So he's related to the Fantastic Four because Reed Richards is the Stretch guy.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it makes me wonder if when they bring Fantastic Four in, if they're gonna get more into this. Like I want to see Loki season 2, obviously.
How close they go to the comics.
That's very true.
Like,
yeah.
They've definitely taken liberties to go off of what the comics offer and pick and choose which of the comics to use, make up their own stuff. They've done a good job with it.
They've done a great job, yeah.
The shows have been great. Their most recent movies have been huge successes.
Yeah.
And they've learned from their mistakes in the past. There have been some bad Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
Albeit still memorable. I will never forget Age of Ultron, but it was not a great movie.
Yeah.
And
they have a way of incorporating even some of their bad stuff, so like
exactly.
you know what's happening. And, like,
it all still follows a very linear
path,
storyline and path, and you get to see all of these inner workings. All of these characters are like cogs in a giant machine.
Yeah.
And yeah, you'll have a cog that's rusty like Ultron, but ultimately it still makes the whole machine work.
Mm-hmm.
Like we got Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, Scarlet Witch, Vision.
For a brief moment, Quicksilver.
Yeah. You have like Captain Falcon or Captain America or whatever they're calling him. You have Winter Soldier. I wanted him to be called White Wolf, but whatever. That's besides the point. But yeah, so
he still is called White Wolf.
He is,
only in the most scientifically advanced region of the entire planet.
Exactly. It kind of leaves you with the question. Well, so they basically have the One Who Remains give them an ultimatum where it's like either you can kill me and everything can go crazy, or you can let me live and you guys take over and I'll retire. And they ask him why he would be willing to give up the power, because obviously he went and searched for these people, and so it makes it seem like the whole time he was leading them here, like everything that was meant to happen, even when they thought that they were in control, they weren't actually in control, according to him.
Right.
But, so, take it with a grain of salt, but I do believe him in that sense, where it's like, possibly.
Yeah,
but,
and I mean, Loki believes him the whole time.
Yeah, Loki's 100% on board.
He's the one, well, other than Sylvie now, he's like Marvel's headline character for trust issues.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was so level-headed about it, whereas Sylvie was just like bullshit the whole time.
Well, she's out for blood, and it overtakes any sensibility. This is one of those when they have their fight, when Sylvie and Loki are fighting. Do you think you believe Loki when he says it's not about power? Do you think it's actually about? Because I'm very conflicted. I think that he's reached a point where he values his relationship with Sylvie more than he values power. If that relationship happens to come with power, then he'll take it. But if it doesn't, then he'll take it anyways. I think that's the sort of. I ultimately just want to see that there's some form of relationship. Loki finally gets a healthy relationship. Yeah.
And so does Sylvie. Someone he can finally trust, and
like someone she can finally trust. And I guess just the normal formula would be to go romantic, and obviously at this point it's romantic for Loki. It seems like it's also romantic for Sylvie as well. She just used it for a second.
Way. I mean, they haven't really specified that it is romantic. The only moments that when they're sitting staring into each other's eyes. Usually that does lead to a more romantic sense of relationship. But at the same time, I like that they haven't really specified.
Yeah.
Maybe what's happening is every time before this, they've made the decision to leave him in power.
Oh, okay.
And he doesn't actually retire and turn the power over to them. Maybe? I don't know.
That actually could be it, because that would explain why he's always gone. And then because he looks out the window after he gets stabbed by Sylvie, and he's like, so this is what it feels like, kind of like, not, he doesn't say that, but that's kind of the look in his eyes, I guess, which obviously that doesn't mean anything because he's an actor. But like the sense I got is like, because even though maybe his incarnation has died like hundreds of times, it's like obviously not this guy that's died 100 times.
Right.
Like it's a different guy. Like, but I guess the other thing is
very confusing.
It is. No, it's so trippy, and that's why like I have more to talk about like the surrounding like atmosphere of the show versus like what actually happens in this episode, because like it kind of like I was just saying, like I don't know like what that means, like what that look means, so it just like has me thinking, you know. But the Loki and Sylvie fight, I honestly thought one of them would die. Like I thought it would be like one of those things, but I couldn't see them killing Loki, and they just introduced Sylvie, so it was like one of those things where I'm like, it seems like one should die here. Obviously they don't, but it seems like one should. But so that kind of had me on the edge of my seat, because I'm like, oh, they're actually fighting this. So it's like Sylvie's probably gonna die in my mind, because they just brought back Loki. Like if they were gonna kill him, they should have killed him like an episode ago.
Yeah, while I was watching the fight, for me personally, there doesn't necessarily have to be a death.
There always has to be a death.
That is if you.
I've seen Game of Thrones too much. I'm sorry.
I was seriously about to say, if you're a Game of Thrones watcher and you're super into shows like that, then yeah, there always has to be a death.
Same problem I have with My Hero is that I always think there has to be a death. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched a fair amount of Game of Thrones. And there will be times where I'll be watching, like, okay, when Mobius got pruned.
Yeah. I thought that was for real.
Not when Loki got pruned, but when Mobius got pruned. Yeah. I was like, okay, they're taking this show.
That was the biggest shock.
I expected.
Any of the Marvel stuff they've really done, like, except for, like, even the I Am Iron Man scene where he snaps his fingers and brings everyone back, like, that was emotionally impactful. Mm-hmm. But, like, I honestly think when Mobius got pruned, that was, like, the biggest, like, oh, they're going that route. You
just pruned my heart.
Yeah, like, you pruned Owen Wilson. But, yeah, exactly. That's why it's, like, seeing them do that, though, is just so, like, I don't know. And it seems like they're going in a very different direction with Phase 4. Like, they're going more surrealist, like, multiversal type thing. But
yeah, but there hasn't really been, like, any crazy deaths. Where
there hasn't been any deaths,
has
there?
Like out of nowhere, like blindsides you, like Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
does.
I'm just saying I've been scarred. That's the whole last like 2 minutes that we've been talking. It boils down to I've been scarred. Yeah, I have an emotional and mental scar for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, most of the population, anybody who's into cinema is probably similarly scarred by that show.
With the ending, when he shows back up, and I forget where he shows up. I think he shows up in the cafe, like in the cafeteria.
No, he's in the library area.
He's in the library. Okay.
Yeah, he passes by the bookshelves.
True.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
This is like a vague.
Well, because I know he ends up in the library also, but up a few stories, I think. So, because he goes and talks to Mobius in B-15.
Right. Yeah, he lands in the TVA.
Yeah.
He quickly runs into B-15.
Exactly.
Mobius.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when he goes through the cafe, there's that clock that has all those different hands on it, and that's obviously an allusion to like, because he doesn't know that Sylvie's done what she's done. Like he has an inclination, but he's hoping that she didn't, or at least that she sent him back to the actual like area that he's from.
Yeah, but he knows in the last like second of the episode when he sees that giant statue of the one who remains on the wall. He's like, that used to be 3 alien lizards. And
I guess that's the first notice that something's different in this universe, that he's in a different timeline now. And I think so that statue I think is King the Conqueror. I think right now they're in that timeline that I was talking about, whereas like he was an analyst. And like he comes to power and everything. So especially with how much the one who remains talked about, like I had conquerors and like that type, I'm like, okay, so they're going that way. So This is King the Conqueror, okay. But so it makes me think that he might be, you know how each phase had like a different villain? Like in phase 1 it was Loki when he came in the Avengers, and then phase 2 was Ultron. Phase 3 was obviously Thanos, but that was the like saga villain, like the Infinity War saga villain.
Yeah.
It makes me think that Kang the Conqueror is gonna be phase 4's villain, or maybe phase 5. Just based on like, I don't know what his powers are, to be clear, but I know that he has like an insane amount of powers, that he's like one of the main guys. And so it makes me think in like maybe phase 5 when they introduce Fantastic Four, whenever they bring back Loki for season 2, which they said they weren't going to do, and then they did. So, which makes me think that they just probably did what they did with WandaVision and kind of like messed with us a little. Mm-hmm. But yeah, which I'm fine with. I'd love to see more of this guy.
So the only thing I do have to say something here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Kang the Conqueror is going to be the saga villain here. because they've introduced him in a show, and not everyone is gonna watch.
They
Loki. They should.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
Not everyone's gonna watch it.
Yeah,
we were talking about this earlier when we were talking about Age of Ultron and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. leading into it. You were telling me that that's how you find out, like, the intro scene to Age of Ultron where they're in that mountain and they're fighting to get up to...
Yeah, the reason they're there is because of what happens in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So it's like you don't need to know what happens there, but like it explains a lot more. Yeah. So...
I think that's going to be kind of what happens with Loki. And maybe if this is Kang the Conqueror, which I have a pretty good feeling it is, he'll definitely play a role in this phase. Whether or not he's the Saga villain, I'm not too sure about.
Yeah. Well, another thing that, because we're talking about the season here too. Another thing is like in WandaVision, they kind of hinted Mephisto. In this show, they've hinted him in like the beginning and like the second episode where I think the second or first episode where they show the church in France and they show like the devil on the wall who did it, which ends up being Loki, but I thought it was Mephisto. So it's like you have a few different options here. You know, you have like Kang the Conqueror now, you have Mephisto, you have whatever. You have Scarlet Witch. You even have, because she's kind of like she's kind of like villainous, like. Ish, like she's like an anti-hero almost.
Bi-hero.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like one of those things where you have a lot of different options.
I mean, I guess Thor is a pinnacle.
Thor's there still, but he's like semi, like he's retired almost from the Avengers.
Yeah, I almost see him as
you have
like
Hulk retired, basically.
Yeah, exactly, retired like grandpa character sort of thing.
And then you have Cap in space probably. You have Iron Man that's just dead. You have Black Widow that's dead, and then Hawkeye's obviously with his family. But there's a Hawkeye show coming out towards December, which I think I'm a
Ronin.
Well,
which one is it called?
It's called Hawkeye, but it's based on, I think it is like he's Ronin.
Yeah.
Or he's because I think he's training. But there's a certain point I know they're like in that show they're gonna pass the baton, so they're gonna try to give someone else the Hawkeye status. So it'll be interesting to see. But that means that all 6 of them would basically be out. Right. Like effectively.
Yeah.
Like
that's the main crew.
Yeah. And Chris Hemsworth has said he's gonna be in Avengers 5, but they haven't announced it. So he said he's gonna be in it, which doesn't mean that he's like involved, but yeah.
Who will be considered an Avenger
in
this next one? I think that I hope Spider-Man is, unless
it seems like they're trying to...
this movie, we'll see if something different happens.
Because I feel like Doctor Strange, for example, he's just like... I see him more as like a mentor-ish character. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't like the first Doctor Strange that much. Like, I think it was maybe overhyped for me, but I didn't like it too much. But I love him as a support character in like every movie he's been in, like the Avengers, like... the Spider-Man trailer, exactly. Yeah. The Spider-Man trailer looks like he's going to be more of a support, like mentor-ish character, like Iron Man was to Peter Parker. So that could be interesting to see. Could also be a villain, but I doubt it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so it's just like I think maybe Spider-Man though, if they can keep Tom Holland and everything, because Sony still owns the rights to Spider-Man, he might lead maybe the next set of Avengers. Like he might be the Captain America, Iron Man-ish type leader.
Yeah, and then you've got Captain Falcon, or
I'm just gonna call him Captain Falcon, man.
Captain Falcon and
trademark
the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I don't know what the next Avengers team's gonna look like.
I have no idea.
I don't think it's gonna look like this first Avengers team was.
No.
It's like here's a group of
Here's a gun.
Humans and regular humans.
Yeah, here's a girl that can shoot a gun. Here's a guy that can shoot a bow, and then here's a god. But yeah, I don't know. It'll definitely be very interesting to see where they're going with it. Mm-hmm. I'm obviously a big Marvel fan, so I'll. To be frank, I haven't read the comics, but I've read like depictions of them. But the movies, I'm a massive fan of, like the MCU stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to see where they go with that. But yeah. I don't know if you have any more comments you want to touch on with Loki. I think overall, I mean, where do you think? Have you seen Winter Soldier, the TV show? I mean, have you seen that? Where would you put this? Like real quick, like rankings. Like from what you've seen, you haven't seen all of WandaVision, but like, what do you think? Like,
I would say in terms of the shows, I view Loki as the best one.
I'm there with you.
And I think it's in some ways, Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier is better than WandaVision in some aspects, and in other aspects, WandaVision's better.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of a tie between those two, but I definitely think that they've really hit the nail on the head with Loki here.
Yeah, I think for me, this is their best show so far that they've like put out. The production is insane. Like whoever's like the cast and crew obviously are phenomenal on this. Like they've done great jobs here. And it was cool to see they poured a ton of money into this too. I think it was like $25 million per episode. So
whatever.
Yeah, it's absurd. Crazy. But for me, I think the story I would put like Captain America and Winter Soldier, Falcon, Winter Soldier, like as the second one, and then WandaVision as my third. But I do think WandaVision was the right place to start for the Phase 4. Like I think it was the proper place to like begin because it shows you that surrealist stuff. But anyway, with Loki, I think it's been great. I'm really excited to see the season 2. More so, I'm excited to see Eternals that's coming out, and you have Shang-Chi and everything. So yeah, but I guess that's where I'll leave it. Thanks for joining us on these episodes, Aidan.
Yeah, man.
And you guys have a good one.